Welcome to Quitting Made Real by Nicorette, the podcast bringing you real stories about breaking the smoking addiction. My name is Cynthia Loist, and quitting smoking is hands down one of the best things I ever did for myself. We have an incredible lineup of guests, and they're all sharing their unique stories of how everyone affected by nicotine addiction can help make quitting real. So if you've ever picked up a pack of cigarettes, you may recognize Barb Tarbox's photos as a real reminder of what dying from lung cancer looks like. We're speaking with her daughter, Mackenzie Tarbox-Chao, about carrying on her mother's legacy. Mackenzie, thanks for being here. Your mother, Barb Tarbox, passed away from lung cancer at only 42 years of age. Can you tell us a bit about her journey and what made her want to speak out?
All the credit goes to my cousin, Ashley, who we were very close within our family. And she had asked my mom if she would come and speak to her class when she was in junior high. Mm-hmm. And so that's a quite impressionable age for students who, kind of start getting into, it's when a lot of people start smoking. And so she'd asked my mom to come. And so she did. And she was so nervous and so unprepared to do this. She was very, very shy, despite how she became during her campaigns. She was actually a very shy person. And so when she did it, I think that she realized that this was something that was much bigger than just one classroom. And then one booking became multiple schools, became kind of a Canada-wide mission.
So you were only 10 years old at the time when she passed away. So what are your memories during that time? First of all, about your mother, and then also about this journey that she was on.
Yeah, so it was really tough for me because I was so young when everything was happening. I had a lot of feelings that I didn't express at that time because I understood that what she was doing was for the greater good, but I was also really angry and really sad because people were taking time away. Like my mom wasn't able to come and spend that last few months with me. She was out on the road. She was doing presentations. And so a lot of my memories were in those like quieter moments that we had. It was, going to the grocery store with her and doing like regular kid things with my mom. And those are the ones that I hold on to more so than, the bigger moments of her life and her travels.
Mm-hmm. Your mom was a model, and I believe that that's where she actually picked up smoking, which is not surprising.
Right.
And so she was extremely young when she got this diagnosis. But again, she made this incredible life and story. What are your most fond memories of her?
My mom was the girliest girl. She loved hair, loved makeup, and she loved the fact that she looked like Princess Diana. And so one of my most cherished memories is when I was really, really young, like maybe 4 or 5 years old. We were shopping at like a little Bonnie Doon mall in Edmonton, and someone had stopped her and asked her if she was Princess Diana. And me as a little girl, I was like, yes, my mom is a princess. I absolutely believed it. And I don't think I've ever seen someone look so happy. And so it's those moments.
Did you find out about when she started doing this advocacy work and was talking to students in school, what it was that kept her there and kept going to talk to them?
It was the kids. It was all of the love that they poured into her and all of the support and motivation that they gave her. I don't think that if she had gone through this journey, I don't think that she would have lasted as long as she did. I think that their stories and them, holding on and embracing her as maybe a smoker or someone who was impacted by it, that is ultimately like what kept her going every day, knowing that you're making an impact. These are kids that are going to make choices different than the ones that she made. Mm-hmm. And hopefully those people won't have the same conversations with their future families that she had to have with me.
You would have been probably around 8 when she was diagnosed?
10. Or 9 when she was diagnosed, 10 when she died.
I mean, I have a son, and I feel like during that age, he wouldn't have necessarily understood where things were headed or could be headed. What kind of information were you given at the time about her diagnosis and about her possible prognosis?
From what I remember about that time, it was really traumatic for us because we didn't know what it was going to look like. And it wasn't a diagnosis where it's like, okay, you might have a couple of years left. This was like, you have months left to live. So it was that by the time she had that doctor's appointment and found out, like it was too late for her. And so I learned a lot about the impact of addiction and how much it had really taken over her life. And she ended up smoking like right up until her deathbed, unfortunately. And I knew that she had all of the drive and all of the will in the world to live because she was only 42. Like that's 10 years from where I am now. And like, I can't imagine knowing that my life is over. Addiction was that powerful that she couldn't stop.
You're looking out in the world today, and even though, as you said, smoking has become, substantially less among certain generations, we have seen the rise of modern nicotine products. Things like e-cigarettes are still a major concern. Talk about what goes through your mind when you see these out in the street and out in the world.
For sure. I picture where my mom was during that time because I'm not a smoker. I can't relate in the terms of the peer pressure, the social aspect of it. But as someone who had a loss due to cigarette use, when my mom was in her 20s, I think she thought that she had all this time in the world to worry about it, that 10, 20 years from now, when it would become a health risk to her, there'll be a cure by then. She's going to be fine. She's an exception. Like it will be fine by then. But it wasn't fine. And there wasn't a cure. And 20 years later, there's still not a cure. And so to anyone who's kind of getting into that space now of like the e-cigarettes and vaping and that type of space that's become more popular, we don't know what those, what 10, 20 years of use is going to look like and the damage that it's going to have in your body. And so I would ask, them to consider, what are you willing to risk? Like, are you willing to consider these risks? Are you willing to tell your partner and your children that you're dying when you're in your 40s? That long before your time should be due. So is it actually worth that risk? Probably not.
Yeah, because like you said, it's a bit like Russian roulette. For every person who you hear a story of somebody, like I often encountered this when I was smoking, that people would say, oh, well, I know so-and-so and had a mother who smoked until they were 80. For every story like that, there are tons of stories as well of people who died young. And so you don't know what your health outcome is going to be.
Absolutely.
You did witness, though, your mom turned this tragic diagnosis into this incredible mission to educate. Was there a turning point in her journey that really stands out to you?
I think what really changed things for her was she had done a couple of talks, nothing big by then, but what the turning point was at my school, we did like a Kids for Cancer walk, and they had sent some media there to take pictures and things like that, to, as you do. And there was a photographer, Greg Southam, and he was taking pictures of my mom, and my mom had done like a bit of a speech at our assembly. And I think he was ultimately the one who really broadcasted that to media. And so him and David Staples kind of became part of our family during this journey. And they're the ones that, because this was long before social media was even popular. And so they really got the word out with newspapers and media on what she was doing. And then that's when she realized that she was doing something really big. And it wasn't just, a couple schools here and there in Edmonton. She was going to Calgary and different cities to speak to more students. And her impact was much more than she ever thought possible. So I think a walk at my school is really what changed the trajectory of her campaign.
So Nicorette supports campaigns aimed at raising awareness about smoking. How do you think your mom's legacy plays into these efforts? And how has it helped shape your views on public health initiatives?
I don't think anyone's quite done it quite like my mom has. And that is coming from a biased place. But I think what made what she did so successful and so impactful is that she disrupted what we typically see in the health, like the public health space. She wasn't just a pamphlet or a stat or a number. She was in your face, in front of you, sometimes a little bit scary, yelling at you about this is what it did to me. And I think having that raw emotion behind it is what made the campaign so successful and why her story still has impact all of these years later.
There was a photograph taken of your mother in the hospital, and it ended up being on the packages of cigarettes across Canada. And that's how many people would recognize your mother's image.
Yes.
So talk about how that came to be and why it was so important for her to have that happen.
I think she was probably a little mortified that that is the lasting photo of her because, again, she was such a girly girl. She loved how she looked. And her photo is when she's dying, when she's got her bald head, she's frail. And I think that she wanted to show people that this is what you're going to look like. You might be fun and hot and 20 right now and hanging with your friends, but if you continue to do this, this is what is going to happen to you. You are not an exception to this that you think that you are. This is where it led me. And I think that the photo is really impactful at showing the true nature of it. And it's relatable. It's a mom that this happened to. It's everybody, you know?
How did it all come to be? And how do you think your mother would have felt knowing that her photograph was on those packages?
I think that she would be happy to know that what she did had lasting impact. I'm not quite sure exactly how it all came to be. I think one of the commission boards had asked us for permission to use it, and we had ultimately agreed to use her photos there because we knew that it would be worth it to have her image used to help prevent or get people to not want to start smoking because of those photos.
I think they're incredibly impactful because I think you see that and you have to pause. And that's what you need for smokers to do, is to pause and to think about the impact that their smoking is having on themselves. Some smokers, as you mentioned, like they decide it's a health scare that sort of shocks them into deciding to quit. What would you say to someone who's struggling to take that very first step forward?
I would say don't wait. Don't wait until Monday to quit. Don't wait until your resolution to quit. Don't wait until you've been diagnosed with terminal lung cancer to quit. Do it now. Do it even though it's hard. I think that quitting smoking is probably one of the hardest things that you can do. I think that telling your family that you're dying is harder. So choose which hard you want to go through.
Your mom still smoked after she was diagnosed with cancer, as you mentioned. And that's a reminder of how highly addictive cigarettes can be. Was this something that you had a hard time as a kid wrapping your head around?
It was a front row seat to how difficult addiction is and how much it completely took over her life. She had all the will in the world to live. She was only 42. Like, she would fall asleep with a cigarette still in her hand. And like right up to her deathbed, like she couldn't stop. She could not break that habit. And addiction is so powerful. And I learned that quite early on. It obviously made me never want to have any sort of addiction or substance abuse issue. And I think it's really important to have these conversations early on, maybe not as early as when I was going through it. But I definitely sympathize with anyone who's going through an addiction struggle.
We talk about it with my son as well, because he sees the e-cigarettes out there even already. He's only 12. So I think you're right. Start these conversations early. What's your advice to people who have loved ones who they want to help quit smoking? They have the best of intentions. They love that person, but maybe they're not going through the experience themselves. What would be your advice?
I think that you need to be there for them. I think you need to have the tough conversations with them. That's something that I regret not doing, all of these years later. I wish I had expressed how I felt instead was kind of bottled it in. I think that it would have made more impact and it would have helped her knowing how her choices had made me feel. And so I think, of course, you want to be there and be supportive, but also acknowledge your own feelings about the situation and have those conversations with them and just be there for them as well.
Is there anything that if you could go back in time and talk about with your mom, what would that be?
I think it'd be a very angry conversation, truthfully.
It's fair.
Because she knew, because my mom's mom had also died of lung cancer from smoking. And so when my mom was in her 20s, I believe, when her mom had been diagnosed, and her doctor warned her, like, if you don't stop, like, this is what it's going to happen to you. And she didn't listen to him, and she thought she was the exception. But unfortunately, cancer does not care. Cancer does not care that you have a family at home, doesn't care if you're trying to start a business. It doesn't care. You are not the exception. And she thought that she was. She thought she was immune to everything in life. And so I would tell her that I'm mad that she didn't listen, that someone had warned her. And even today, it's still an issue. People are still smoking today. People are still having those conversations where they have to tell their family that they're not going to make it till Christmas. And people just need to listen. And so it would be a very tough, angry conversation about how upset I was that she didn't listen, and her choices, because she had a choice, led her to this life.
I can only imagine how proud, as a mom myself, she would have been of you. And, for everything who you've become. You got married a couple of years ago. Those are things that she missed out on. And I'm just curious what you think that she would think of like how you've carried on her message.
I think she would be proud that, I'm able to go out, and because I'm quite shy when it comes to public speaking. I did not inherit any sort of motivational public speaking traits from her. That's for sure. I'm
not true.
Very nervous.
You're great
about it all the time, but I think she'd be proud that I'm doing things that scare me to have these conversations, to be vulnerable. I think she'd be proud of that, but I think that she would overall be upset that we're still having these conversations. We're still reminding people about the dangers of smoking today. I think she'd be upset about that.
Well, you're going places, and I thank you so much for having this conversation today. And I want to thank you for listening to the Quitting Made Real podcast by Nicorette today. And if you're listening and you're thinking about quitting, remember, it is never too late to make quitting real.